Hey y'all, I'm kind of videotaping this halfway in because I didn't think about doing a video until I was halfway in. I was like, well, geez, I could do a video on this. So I'm making mead. It's a honey liquor that was used back in medieval time. So what I did is I went and bought a 5-pound of honey. You can get this at Walmart. It's already been pasteurized, but you can pasteurize it if you'd like, which is just to heat it. But this has already been pasteurized. And it's not raw or anything like that. So if you feel the need to pasteurize it, you can, which is just putting it into a pot and boiling it and skimming off whatever scum rises to the top. Okay, so after that, what you do is you make sure this is completely disinfected. Any kind of dirt or germs that is on any of your materials will contaminate this and make it ferment into a vinegar-like substance, which you can't really tell if the vinegar is a good vinegar or a bad vinegar unless you are used to working with vinegars. So you would have to trash the whole thing. It wouldn't be any good. So what what I do is I take this, I make sure I wash it out with soap and water, and then I throw it by itself in the dishwasher for 1 to 2 loads with a really good, I sometimes add Dawn dish soap and a regular dish cleaner that you use in dishwashers. After that, after it's all been cleaned and everything, and make sure your funnel is clean, usually I also throw this in the dishwasher and let it disinfect that way, but I decided to hand wash it with a very good disinfectant. So and also you want to wash the lid as well. So after it's been disinfected, you go ahead and you add the honey. I'm going to add the whole entire 5 pounds. You don't have to add the entire 5 pounds. You can just use part of it, however sweet or unsweet you want it to be. My husband and I like it sweet, so we add the entire 5 pounds. This is a 1-gallon jug. So the way that I get these jugs, if you go to the liquor store and get the 1-gallon sangria bottles, they're usually about $10 for the container. This is a great way to use them for this project. So I go ahead and I'm going to fill up the rest of this with some honey. But what I've already put into it is I have put 1 tablespoon worth of active dry yeast. I've also put 15 raisins in here and make sure the raisins are washed because you never know if there was any germs or any kind of debris that was left on them. So just hold them in your hands and just wash them under warm to hot water just to kind of beat off any debris that's in here. I also put real orange juice in here of 1 orange. Make sure your hands are washed when you do this. I went ahead and unpeeled the orange, and instead of putting pieces of orange in here, I squeezed the orange into the funnel and let it drop in. I made sure my hands were disinfected before I did this. So after that, you can see that the yeast is already in there. You can't see the orange juices because it's already been filled over. And I went and slowly pouring the rest of this in here. And if you want to get every single little drop of it, you can throw this container. Make sure that the little aluminum is taken all off. So once you take the aluminum off, you see the aluminum around the rim, you can take that off and throw it in the microwave for a few seconds to make sure that all the honey gets in there. All right. So after you have all the honey in there, what you're going to do is you're going to have a pot of water that's already been heating up because you want warm water to mix with the honey and the yeast so it can activate the yeast. Granted, activating the yeast can happen just from it being in the honey itself. You don't need to warm the water, but this just helps speed up the process so the honey can go ahead and start being activated. So as you can see, I probably have this a little too high, but you can see bubbles are on the bottom and kind of rising to the top of my pan. This means, at least I've got my water that's going ahead and being disinfected. So if anything that came through the faucet that wasn't proper, it's already been taken care of, and now it can probably cool off a little bit and then be ready to be poured in. Okay, so I went ahead and poured it was hot, but it wasn't way too hot. So I went ahead and poured it in here. And what I usually do is I'm going to pour some more all the way up to this part, because you want to be able to leave about this amount. You don't want it to be topped all the way, because what it's going to do is it's going to bubble and ferment. And if you fill it up way too high, it's going to overflow, especially if you have large quantities of fruit. Now, this is just a regular honey mead. This is not a fruit mead. So with it being that, you need to make sure that, you have at least this much room. If it was, filled with fruit, I would even lower it to here, to this line right here. Granted, there's no line. It's imaginary by my finger. But I would fill it up to here so it's got even more space. Because there has been a time where I filled it up to here with a whole section of cherries, and it literally came out and over. And so I've been making mead for about 6 years now. So, I'm not an expert or anything like that. This is just stuff that, I make for me and my family. And some friends, to go when we go and hang out at events. But this is my version of mead. This is the first time that I've actually made a regular mead like this. So this is my take on it. I know a lot of people are going to tell you that you need those special funnels that go on top. You don't. Anybody who tells you that, yeah, it's great, they're probably the ones that are seasoned and have been doing this for so many years. I know quite a few winemakers that do that method. However, doing that method is not completely wrong, but it can be expensive for people who want to do something that's cheap and fun. So what you can do on the flip side is you take one of these balloons, you go and expand it, and put it around the rim of this. So when it ferments, it's going to blow up the balloon. Make sure that you have this pricked with a pen about 2 or 3 times so the air can escape. Now, after that's done, you can just, put it on top. What I'm going to do, since I'm used to doing this, I'm not going to put the balloon on top. What I'm going to do is just straight put this on top, but I'm not going to screw it down. Because if you do that, you're going to compress this and it'll explode. And you will have literally a living, ticking time bomb in this. But since I've been doing this for so long, well, not so long, 6 years is not so long for some people, but since I've been doing this for a while and I keep a very good eye on these things, I know what to do. It's not going to be a problem for me to have this just sitting on top. So I've done that with several of my mead containers. I've never had an issue with it. So, you can see that, well, if I move the stuff out of the way, there's this bottle right here, and this is my pomegranate mead that I made, and it's already been done fermenting. That's why I have the lid screwed down. But this container right here, I had it just to where it was just sitting on top, just like that. And I would just uncap it to make sure that there was no compression. But otherwise, if it's just sitting like that on top, it's got air to where it can circulate. So, but I don't need to do that anymore with this one, because this one has already been done fermenting for about a month now. So sometimes some meads will ferment for about a month. Sometimes they will ferment for 2 months, depending what's in it. On top of that, after your fermentation stage, you're going to let it sit. For this one, you only need to take 3 weeks because it is a basic mead. There's no fruit in it. Some with fruit in it. I know my cherry mead took about a year, because I had a dark cherry mead that took about a year for it to become out of the green stage. And my nectarine mead literally took